So Ashley is standing on the side of her house, looking at her front porch where her mother-in-law is, knocking at the door, peeking in the window, and Ashley's stomach drops. Earlier that day, she already told her mother-in-law today won't work, and again, her mother-in-law showed up anyway. But this time, Ashley heard me in the back of her head saying, don't let her in. So quickly, she's trying to remember, like, what was that script? What am I supposed to say? When all of a sudden, her body started betraying her. She started shaking. She just started feeling really bad. Her heart was racing. Her throat was closing up. But the words she got out, what she was able to say to her mother-in-law, did provide her some temporary relief. Her shoulders dropped. She was able to exhale, and she felt better. So what Ashley said was, "Oh, Linda, we were in the back. I didn't hear the door. Come on in." Why? Why didn't Ashley mind her boundary? I gave her the script. She knew exactly what to say. It was a very kind script. It was like, "Oh, Linda, good to see you. You must not have gotten my text. Today won't work. I'll send you a message with alternative days." Why couldn't she say that? And what was going on with her body? Well, it turns out Ashley, along with myself and maybe you, she was raised in a home where she was trained to put other people's needs ahead of her own. So in that moment where it was like push come to shove, it's time to mind your boundary, that guilt came up and it was so heavy, so painful, so intense, but it's paired with the feeling you're doing something wrong. So this impending doom is coming in on her, like you're doing something wrong. You are a bad girl. So since she's not a bad girl and she doesn't want to do anything wrong, she caved and she absorbed. And in that moment, she felt better. She's like, okay, like, yep, even though I needed tonight, to work on work and I had a lot of things to do, it's okay. I'll host, no big deal. But it is a big deal because like I told you in the first episode, when I introduced the drama triangle, I told you, and again, the drama triangle, we have the mother-in-law on top who's pushing and pressing and putting a lot of pressure on this little unit. So she's on top. Then you have the husband who avoids. He's the one that's deflecting, minimizing, and if nothing else works, he shuts down. And then on the other side of the triangle, we have Ashley absorbing all of it, absorbing all the weight, doing everything she can just to keep the peace. But I told you in that video that the longer you're in a drama triangle, the more you wear out, like it's damaging to your health. And so I told her again, yes, in that moment, I understand you weren't able to follow through and enforce your boundary. But long term, this isn't the solution that's going to be good for you, because I guarantee it, at some point in your life, you will walk into the bathroom. You'll look in the mirror, Ashley, and you will not recognize who you've become, because that's what this unhealthy dynamic does to you. It wears you down. It makes you decay. It changes who you are and how you see yourself. So the best thing you can do if you see yourself in Ashley's story is begin by exiting the drama triangle. But in order to do that, we have to understand, what is this block? Like, what's going on here? So let's talk about conditioned guilt. That's what we're focusing on today. And I know we've talked about it before. This is not going to be redundant. We're going deep. We're going to talk about not only what it is, kind of where it came from. We're going to talk about why our parents did it, and then how conditioned guilt morphs into self-doubt. And then that shows up when we're adults as people-pleasing. Like, that's why, it's so deeply ingrained in us. That's why it's so hard just to put down our people-pleasing or peacekeeping ways. So we're going to cover all that. And then we're going to continue my conversation with Ashley, where I walked her through 3 exercises, a pre-boundary, nerve reset, during the boundary, what she can do, and then post-boundary. So we're going to go through all of that. We got a lot to cover. So let's get started. Conditioned guilt. Let's talk about it so we're both on the same page. When I think of conditioned guilt, I am reminded of Pavlov's experiment with his dogs, where he would bring in food and ring a bell at the same time, and the dog would salivate. That's a biological response. And then he noticed that eventually he could just ring the bell and the dog would salivate. And he's like, oh my gosh, I can have a second stimulus elicit a biological response. It doesn't need to just be food. Well, our parents did the same thing. They had a bell. Their bell looked different, but they realized, oh, I can ring the bell, and that looked like silent treatment. I can ring the bell and that looked like passive aggressive, ring the bell and that could look like aggressive temper, ring the bell and that could look like restricting love. And I can get my needs met quick. And the more that they did that, the more that we were conditioned to always ignore our needs and put their needs first. Now, I'm not here to bash on parents. I am a very flawed parent, and I truly believe as parents, we do the very best we can with the tools we have, and some parents just don't have a lot of tools, okay? I also believe in order for us to right this wrong, to heal and rewire ourselves, we have to understand this. So even though I'm going to talk about our parents, I'm not dogging on them. I'm trying to help us understand why they use this method. Like, why was their go-to method? And I'm speaking from the heart. This was my dad's go-to method, and I don't think he was a bad person. Yes, did he have some selfish tendencies? I understand that though. He had a very cold mother and he just had a bottomless pit. He couldn't get enough attention. So yes, he did have some selfish tendencies, but for the most part, my dad was just working all the time and he needed our help. He was always stressed out with work and he needed our help. And so he used that. And I just don't think he knew any other way. So I have a lot of grace with my dad, even though it caused a lot of damage, a lot of stuff that I had to rewire. But I'm sitting here with you today telling you that even though I went through all that, and for the majority of my life, I have avoided boundaries because of conditioned guilt, I'm sitting here with you now using the tools I have, understanding that it was conditioned guilt all along, and I'm able to set boundaries that stick 100% of the time. So stick with me today, because I think even if you've tried this before, you're going to have some light bulb moments and these tools are really going to help you. And I'm telling you, it is worth it. It is so slow and painful and challenging at the jump. But now I'm sitting here watching our child almost leave the nest. She's a senior this year. And I'm so grateful I did the work. So stay the course with me. So now let's talk about why our parents use guilt to meet their needs. Because it's not always about being selfish. Number one, they could have had it modeled to them. Like, that is their blueprint. That was 100% for my dad. Like, his mom was very manipulative. My grandma tried to manipulate me. So I know the type of treatment I could only imagine the type of treatment my dad got. But your parents had that modeled for them when they were little. Number two, the reason why they used guilt on you was it works fast. Guilt feels awful. It's so terrible. We want to avoid it at all costs because it's such a heavy, painful feeling. So it's very motivating to get us to do whatever they want. Number three, they didn't have better tools. They didn't know any other way, so they used what they had. Number four, stress and pressure. I definitely believe this was for my parents, like my dad. Parents are so busy and they need help. There's too much going on. They're stressed at work and they just do whatever they can to get their needs met because it's just a lot to carry. And the last one is very devastating. Sometimes you will have a parent that does use their child to meet their own needs. Like, we're talking about their personal, emotional needs. And this is the most damaging. Now I want to show you what this looks like, just to kind of refresh your memory and just imagine being a child and hearing this from your parent. Remember, as children, all we want to do is have love and approval and 100% acceptance from our parents. So when we hear these things, it matters to us. It really hurts us. And remember, if you hear any buzzing, it's just temporary. I'll unplug the iPad as soon as I'm done. So here's some things that we heard. If you really loved me, you would do what I asked. Okay, well, I do really love you, so I'm going to do it. I'm going to ignore what I need. I'm going to meet your need. When I was your age, I never gave my parents any trouble. Oh my gosh, I don't want to make you upset with me. Good kids don't act like that. What is wrong with you? Could you imagine hearing that as a kid? Good kids don't act like that. What's wrong with you? After everything I've done for you, or I've worked so hard and this is what I have to come home to. What a selfish, don't worry about me. I'll just sit here all alone. You're making me so sad. When you don't listen to me, just as a kid, you're just like, oh, I don't want to make mom sad. And then my dad, this was my dad's. I'll remember that. I don't know why that worked every single time on me. It's like, oh my gosh, you're going to remember that? I'll do anything you ask. But then their training gets reinforced once we go out into the world. So from teachers, coaches, and then as we get older, professional life, it just keeps getting reinforced. And then as women, look at this. I just looked this up too. With women, we get it the most. And I just think it's important to look at this because it's just good to be aware of it. Like as women, the capacity for guilt is universal because it is a human emotion. But research suggests that women are socialized and conditioned to experience and carry it more intensely than men. Like I believe that's really important to know that it's not just like our parents doing this to us and then reinforce, like a teacher's like, oh, thank you so much for staying by and helping me. Like, you're such a good kid. Oh, I'm going to not go out for recess tomorrow and help my teacher. Like, I want that reinforcement. Or you stayed after practice and did something for your coach. It's your hard work is carrying the team. Oh, I'm going to keep working hard for the team. Like, I don't care if I want to go out with my friends. I'm going to keep practicing harder. So it keeps getting reinforced. But then we have societal messages and expectations as well as women conditioning us to keep the peace and put family harmony at the top. That is why even if like our mother-in-law is pushing and it's so overbearing and her husband is doing nothing and he's conflict avoidant and whatever, and he's shutting down, we feel like it's our burden to carry because we were trained to think that way. But what happens when conditioned guilt starts to morph into something else? Like, wouldn't you think some of these messages get really stuck in us and we start to have like mistaken beliefs? That's what I want to talk about next. I want to talk about when guilt turns into self-doubt and what that looks like. This is how the work of our parents, conditioned guilt that was reinforced by society, can turn into self-doubt. So pay attention to this. This made me cry when I wrote this part because so much rang true for me. The first one is hunger. So I don't know if you've ever been at the kitchen table and you're just like, I'm not hungry. And your parents are like, you eat that food. There's starving children. You're going to make me sad if you don't eat. Like, mommy took so much time to cook that. What's the message there? Don't trust my body signals. Like, don't trust if my body is saying I'm full or I'm hungry. Like, I can't trust that. Also, I don't want to make my mom sad, so I'm going to eat even though I don't want it. I'm going to put her needs ahead of my own. The second one is safety, and this hit so hard for me. I had family members, there's two of them, who I did not feel comfortable hugging as a kid. It made me feel very, very uncomfortable. And I would tell my parents, I don't want to hug him. And they would push me ahead to hug him because it's rude. Like, don't be rude and don't make him feel sad. And I would hug him. Now, internally, the message was, don't trust my discomfort, like my instincts are wrong. And even if I'm uncomfortable, do it anyway because you don't want to hurt someone else's feelings. You know how powerful that wiring is? I'll tell you. So when I was writing this down, I was like, oh my gosh. So in college, and then for 8 years, I worked for my family business, which is a trucking company. So I worked with men. It was a man's world. And during that period of my life, I allowed men to physically invade my space, to physically touch me in ways that I did not feel comfortable with because I would freeze and then I would fawn and I would put their needs ahead of my own. I would put their comfort above my own discomfort. So, farmers would come and give me a hug and they would drape their hand around and just like let it rest. Like right here, they would hug me and the hand would slip, underneath, like, so it was resting on my butt, just long lingering hugs, just a lot of things that made me feel so used. I allowed, and I believe it probably started here with not wanting to hug those family members. Rest is the next one. So a kid says, okay, I'm going to go play with the neighbor kids. And the parent says, oh my gosh, after all I do for you, you can't stay inside and help me? How selfish. The message is when my body says I want to rest or I want to play, I can't trust that. And play or rest, that's selfish. And I should always put work and adult needs ahead of that. So that's the message there. So just hopefully some connections are forming. The next one is emotions. So you're crying, and your parent says, stop that. You're making me feel bad. So in that moment, the message is, They can't handle my feelings. Like my feelings are too much. My feelings don't matter. And I should hide my feelings so that I don't make adults upset. So I don't make others upset. And then the final one is identity. Imagine you're put in a sport, you don't like it, and you're like, I really don't like this. And your parent reacts, you're so ungrateful. Good kids would be grateful for this. Like, don't complain and make me feel like a bad parent for putting you in this sport. The message is, I don't get to have likes or dislikes. I can't trust that. And if I have them, like, I'm selfish. So they don't matter. And I'm just going to go along to protect like their needs. So you can just see it over and over and over. And here I wrote this down. This is very powerful. So listen up. What this does to us is it tells us that my instincts are wrong. My needs hurt people. Being good means ignoring myself. Now that has to hit you really hard because it hit me so deeply. And even coming from a place of believing all of this, I'm telling you, you can come to a place where I'm sitting today where I am able to push through all of this crap and set boundaries, and it's not as hard as when I started. So it does get easier. Let me unplug this just to make sure it's not buzzing on us. Now that we know what it is, what was happening to Ashley, it was her internal alarm, that conditioned guilt coming up, reminding her, like, when you feel this feeling, you're supposed to stop because it means you're doing something wrong. And if you keep going, you're a bad person. So now we know what that actually is. We understand the hidden messages that we have to rewire. How do you start that process? How do you start doing the reps to untangle everything that's been programmed into you? Well, how I started is I started imagining that feeling, that intense pain and heaviness. I imagined it as a smoke alarm. So when we have a smoke alarm go off, we go and check it. Like, is my son burning pancakes again? Or is there a legitimate fire? Like, do I need to take action? So if my son was burning pancakes, I would just wave around the towel and, clear out the air and just move on. That would be conditioned guilt. But if there's actually a fire, that would be healthy guilt. That is my biological response coming up saying, hey, if you want to continue being a person that lives aligned with your values, you better look at this. Because when you were really bratty to your husband, when you were hangry, that wasn't good, like not good at all. Or, hey, I know you had a lot of fun in the moment gossiping about that coworker, but that's not you. Like, you're not a gossiper. Like, you should really look at that. So a fire actually means you need to do something. You need to take action to stay aligned with your values, your core values of who you are as a person. So that would look like going to my husband and saying, I'm sorry. Like, I was a B, like I shouldn't have acted like that. Or looking at that interaction I had, talking about my coworker and making a deal with myself saying, I'm not going to do that again. Like, then right when I make that aligned action, I'm going to feel better. Conditioned guilt, blowing away the smoke from the alarm, like fanning it away so that the alarm stops firing. I don't know. It shuts off. That looks like, okay, my smoke alarm is going off. I know that this is conditioned guilt. This is old wiring. I'm still a kind person. I'm doing nothing wrong. All I'm doing is loving myself and my relationships enough to set limits. So that's how I started doing it. I just started recognizing, oh, this is my smoke alarm. This is just old wiring. I'm not doing anything wrong. I know this feels scary, but I'm just loving myself and my relationships enough to set limits. And the more you just start recognizing it and just having that awareness and just reprogramming yourself with a new message, the easier it gets to actually push through. So that would be the first step. So going back to Ashley, as we talked further, I realized that when we talked the very first time and she told me that her mother-in-law said she was coming over at 5 and Ashley said, oh, today's actually terrible. Let's plan something later this week. That text that Ashley sent off really quickly to her mother-in-law, it turned out that took her over an hour to type and retype into her notes app so that it sounded good. Like, she wanted it to come out really, really good. But the same thing happened to her when she went to set that boundary and communicate that limit with her mother-in-law. Her body reacted the same way. So I walked her through something that she could do next time. It's called it's like a pre-boundary nerve reset. And we've talked about these tools before, but I would love it if you did it with me. So if you are standing, I would love that. So, and if you're not, just stand up. And I just want you to put both feet on the ground and then rock gently back and forth. All this does is orient your body like back into the present moment. Like it just brings you back into the moment. That's all I want you to do. I want you to put your hand on your heart. I want you to put some pressure on that polyvagal nerve. So put your hand on your heart, pressure. And I want you to exhale long and slow. All you have to remember is you inhale for 4, exhale for 6, and you do this 5 times. Inhale for 4, exhale for 6. And while you're doing that, all I want you to tell yourself is, I know this feels scary. Like this feels like I'm doing something wrong, but I'm not. I'm just loving myself and my relationships enough to set limits. That's all that's happening here. So you're doing that, and then you're taking a deep breath, and then you send the message, or then you say the thing you're going to say. So that's what I walked her through, is just simply calming yourself back down, bringing yourself back into the present moment. And when you exhale long and slow, what you're doing is you're shutting off fight, flight, or freeze, and you're turning back on your parasympathetic nervous system, which allows your frontal lobe to turn back on. That's your executive functioning, thinks very reasonably, makes like rational decisions. But when you're in fight or flight, you're just thinking emotional. And that's what you want to turn that off. And then you want to turn back on your executive brain. And that's what the long and slow exhales do. So make sure you're doing that part. If after you do that and it's still like you're about to send the text and you're like, oh, go run some cold water on your hands. Just cold water is proven to just kind of shock your body enough, again, to just reset it a little bit. So it just kind of gives you a very quick reset. Then you send the text. Now, fast forward, what does Ashley do in the moment? Because she has a mother-in-law that even when she sets a limit, her mother-in-law ignores her. So she's always going to be confronted with enforcing the limit because her mother-in-law is not going to listen. She just ghosts her. She doesn't hear back from her. So she sends a text and her mother-in-law doesn't respond, and she just shows up later. So this is what I told Ashley to do. It's very similar. So in the moment, let's get her back to, she's on the side of her house. So in the moment, she's on the side of her house. She sees her mother-in-law is knocking at the door. She didn't listen. She showed up again. I want Ashley to rock back and forth on her feet, just ever so slightly. She's doing this very quickly. And then she's breathing in for 4, out, long and slow for 6. She's doing that twice. She's reminding herself that I know this feels unsafe. I'm doing nothing wrong. I'm loving myself and my relationships enough to set limits. And then she does the script that she has memorized. She says, oh, Linda, it's so good to see you. You must have missed my text. Today is not going to work. I'll send you a message with some other options later this week. Then when the mother-in-law either pushes back, like, oh, but sweetie, I brought Ben's favorite casserole, or, oh, but sweetie, I brought the boys this, like, are you sure? Like, I'm already here. All she does is she reassures her mother-in-law, like, oh, we'll have to put that in the freezer so we can enjoy it when we can all be together. And then she repeats her boundary. Again, tonight just won't work. I'll message you for some alternative times later this week. That's all she does. Now, so that was during. So we have pre-boundary, during boundary, and post. Another thing you can do during the boundary is you can have like a cold bottle of water or a cold drink if you happen to have a second to grab it. And you can just kind of switch it between your hands as well, just to kind of remind your body, like, this is where I'm at. The last thing, post-boundary exercise. So once Ashley's mother-in-law does leave, Ashley is going to have like a shame spiral start. She's going to start to be like, oh my gosh, I'm the worst person in the world. What have I done? What's going to happen? She's going to cause a lot of drama. She's probably already calling Ben. He's going to be mad at me. Like, she's probably telling the whole family I'm the worst person on earth. All this stuff is going to probably start to spiral. So what I told Ashley to do is get somewhere quiet for just a second, go to the bathroom, and again, hand on heart. This is a very powerful tool. Hand on heart, pressing down on your polyvagal nerve and just reminding yourself with those long, slow exhales, I did nothing wrong. I did nothing wrong. Like, I am safe. I did nothing wrong. I am a kind, good person. And I love myself and my relationships enough to set limits. Then I told her, get busy, move your body, take your kids to the park, call your friend. If your husband's home, call your friend, tell her what you did, just get that energy out, and then don't dwell on it. So hopefully that's helpful for you. Hopefully that's inspiring to you, where now you're like, okay, I understand now why my body betrays me like that. I understand why it feels just like paralyzing to set a boundary for me. And it's because of my childhood. And we're not blaming our parents, we're just understanding it. So you understand that. Now you understand how like those messages kind of get jumbled up because we're just a child's brain. We're so impressionable, how they get jumbled up and they really, make us question ourselves and second guess ourselves. So we have self-doubt and it turns us into people pleasers as adults. So we see that pattern. You've gotten 3 incredible grounding exercises to do before the boundary, during the boundary, and after the boundary. So if you still aren't ready, I need you to just keep rewatching this, because this episode is gold in terms of truly helping you move to the next level. Like you need to do that. I'm telling you, if you are in this drama triangle, you need to learn how to exit, which is a good point. If I'm asking you to exit the drama triangle in order to put the emotional tension back where it belongs between mother and son so that they can figure out their crap and you stop absorbing it all and withering yourself away, that's all this is going to do. It's a dead end for you. Trust me. That's all this is going to do. If I'm asking you to exit the drama triangle, I feel like we need to go through some more examples. Like we've had a good one where Ashley's mother-in-law shows up unannounced all the time, regardless if Ashley tells her not to. So we have that example and how she can exit the drama triangle by minding her boundary. But I want to go through some more examples, and we're going to do that in the next video. So I will see you there. Bye.